Yeah. Youth Invasion 2017. Pretty awesome. I tell you, I was, Cheryl and I were gone this week for our General Assembly, which took place in Indianapolis, so we weren't able to be here, but I loved watching the videos and the Facebook posts about Youth Invasion and our church actually being the hands and feet of Jesus this week. So if you're here this morning and you participated in some sort of way, you led a team or participated in Youth Invasion, will you stand up real quick this morning? Awesome. I want to thank Angie Courtwright, who does just a great job leading this. I think it's the 8th year in a row that we've actually done Youth Invasion here at Salem, and every year it's the stories that come out of it. I think one of the teams flash mobbed the Rostons family this week and kind of poured some gifts on them. That video has been viewed 18,000 times on Facebook, which is crazy, unreal, but pretty amazing stuff. And I love the fact that I love being a part of a church where and it wasn't leader led. This was lay led, and so just love being a part of a place that believes in that. And we're going to see more. Angie's also leading our local missions team and putting some guidelines around that. So we're going to see some more opportunities. So if you're here as an adult and you're looking at those pictures, going, "Man, I wish there was an adult invasion," it's probably coming this fall. So we're going to be doing some things locally to where we can actually get outside of these walls and be a part of our community and interact and do some things. So be paying attention for that. And so if you're a visitor here for the first time, or if you're here for maybe the second time or something, and you like what you see, or you've liked maybe so far, I mean, I know I'm going to preach, so you maybe want to make this decision later, but if you're here, we would love for you to have an opportunity. We'd love to have an opportunity to get to know you. And I'm just taking a second out to tell you that. We'd love to get in a congregation this size. It's difficult for us to know everybody, but I really do want to get to know you. And so one of the ways that we are able to do that is through our connection table in the back. There's a big banner that says connection. I promise if you stop by there, if you're a first-time guest, and give us your name and stuff, we're not going to stalk you. Well, maybe a little. No, we're not. But we'll have a gift for you and everything. But stop by our connection table if you're first or second-time guest, or if you have questions, stop by the Got Questions table and get a part of this church. It's a great, great place to be a part of. But one of the other things that's really cool about our church, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, is I love that families in our church are doing their part to help our church grow in attendance, really, mainly. And some of the families that are doing that are really taking it upon themselves to do that by having babies. And and we really, really appreciate it. And I shared in the first service, I'm not sure what was happening 9 months ago, but something was up because we got a lot of babies being born right now. So it's all good. And I want to take just a second to recognize some of these little babies. We got pictures, I think, somewhere. I guess the back ones. Yes. I don't know what happened to the back screens. But yes, this is Aniston Lee Walsh, and she is the daughter of Nick and Abby Walsh, and she was born on June 6th. And I've had the opportunity to hold her, and she's got like this awesome hair. She's got all this really cool black hair, so we want to welcome her to the Grace family. And then the next is, I think, Reagan. This is Reagan Lynn Carpenter, and this is the daughter of Scott and Amanda Carpenter, born on June 14th. Just a beautiful baby girl. This is their first baby, so really excited to have her join our church. And then last but certainly not least is little Josiah Michael T-Burnt. He's son of Mike and Christy T-Burnt, born June 13th. And we just asked for you to say a special prayer for him. He's got a bunch of older sisters, and he's going to need it. He's got all those moms. I think he may be here for the first time, so congratulations, guys, on that. So exciting. I love having new babies. And one thing, there's, fun of babies, and one of the things about babies, which is really kind of cool, is especially if they're like Morgan, when we had Morgan, one of the things that they really do is they have projectile vomiting. It's really just, Morgan was really good at it. When she was a baby. She loves that I share those details about her life. But she was really good at, she's a good puker. And, you celebrate those things in your kids' lives. And proud of those things. I'm proud of you, Morgan. So proud of you. She's grown up, but it's a good puker. And I tell you, speaking of throwing up, as I get into this, I'm not anybody fan, really? I'm not a huge fan of puking. Anybody a puker fan? Okay, good. I'm glad. It was one of the things that I despise the most about life is puking. If there's anything I can do, some people are like, they don't like it, but they're okay. They embrace the puke. Cheryl does that. She's like, just puke, you'll feel better. I'm like, no, I don't want to. I can't do it. And I think primarily it's because I am a violent puker. I am. It comes from the depth of my soul. It's loud. It's like, "Aah!" And I hate it. I do anything I can to avoid that in my life. And there have been times, Cheryl's like, why do you hate it? I'm like, and then I'll come out after throwing up. She's like, seriously, does it have to be that loud? I'm like, yes. Yes, it does, and it will be. That's why I hate it. Neighbors are calling, are you guys all right over there? But that's the thing, and so I'm allowed. I puked on the bus when I was a kid once. That was fun. It was right before I got off. I was so sick. It was you can feel it coming. I'm like, I ain't gonna make it. Sure enough, didn't I? It was right before my stop at my house. I got off. I'm like, peace, see ya, I'm out. You deal with all that. But you're wondering why I'm throwing up. But anybody got a weak constitution? Anybody got like weak stomach? Like you throw up easy. I'm not that way typically, but there are certain things that just kind of gross me out. And one of those things I remember when I was a kid in high school, we had this family that was moving back to the area, and they moved to our area from Utah, and it was in the middle of summer, and they'd driven this trailer, and they packed all this stuff, and they had, for some reason, packed potatoes. Who packs potatoes when you move? Hey, don't forget the potatoes. But they put them in a cooler, and then they got back like weeks later. They had forgotten that they had put these potatoes in the cooler. And have you ever smelled a rotten potato? I'm not sure there's anything worse. But we put the lid, and it was like this juice and green. It was just like, it was just one of those things. But I couldn't. I hate that. I hate throwing that. So we're going to talk about something. And the reason why I'm talking about that and the gross factor in my sermon today, but really we've been talking about this thing called Christian Atheist, the Christian Atheist, and you'll figure out the whole reference here in a minute. But first week we've been on this message series for 3 weeks. First week we talked about people who believe in God but don't know Him. People who generally that 94% of Americans say they believe in God, but most people live like they don't, like He doesn't exist. And so last week I talked about people who believe in God but don't fear Him. They don't have any kind of fear of God. They believe in Him, but they really don't believe that He's going to be a just God or hold them accountable for anything. And so this week, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about people who believe in God, and they believe in God everything, but they just don't want to be a fanatic. These are and I remind you, the Christian atheist, and you think, what's a Christian atheist? An atheist obviously is somebody who doesn't believe in God. They say they don't believe in God. But a Christian atheist would be somebody who believes in God, but lives like He doesn't exist. And so that's a Christian atheist. And so we have these people, and so I want to begin this morning. We have these people who basically, I don't know, maybe you know some of them. They're like, I believe in God. I'm okay with it. I'm not offended. I believe in God. I just don't want to be overboard. I just want to, I'll come to church, I'll sit, but I'm not going to go overboard. I'm not going to be this fanatic when it comes to my walk with Christ and my relationship with Christ. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. But I want to begin with a story that's in the book of Revelation. And if you read the book of Revelations, and sometimes it's an intimidating book to read because it's really hard to understand, but in the first part of that, the first part of Revelations is really cool because it's basically, if you like the first 7 chapters or so, is a letters that Jesus wrote letters to different churches in His day. They were different churches, and John recorded them and put them in the book of Revelations. And so we have these letters, okay? You've got all these different letters that Jesus wrote to these different churches. Most of the time, the letters were like, hey, you guys are doing really good at this. You guys are doing good here. I like what you're doing over here, but here's a couple of things you need to work on, okay, as a church. There was one church that just got roasted, and it was the church of Laodicea. And if you read through that, the first part, go home, read the book about these different letters to these different churches. This one church in Laodicea was a church that was, Jesus didn't even throw him a bone. Like, He was like, And he just started in on him. And so that's where we're going to pick this up. It's in Revelation chapter 3. And just some backstory about Laodicea, just so you know what the city was. It was a city that was extremely wealthy. They were extremely blessed. They had a lot of wealth, a lot of affluence. They were a community like just 35 years before Jesus wrote these letters. Their city was destroyed by an earthquake. If you do any research on Laodicea, it was destroyed by an earthquake, and they rebuilt it bigger and better, like almost instantly. It was like they had so much money, and they had huge theaters and lavish stadiums and lavish public baths and fabulous shopping centers. And really, the only thing I could probably relate it to would be kind of like Vegas today. I mean, it's just this incredible, like, infrastructure and buildings, and everything was nice and new, and they were just wealthy. I mean, they just were a wealthy nation or city. And so Jesus begins to speak to them in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 through 17 in Laodicea, and this is what he says to them. To the angel of the church in Laodicea I write, these are the words of the Amen, the faithful and the true witness, the ruler of God's creation. Pay attention, because here's where it gets good. I know your deeds, that you are neither hot, or you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. You say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth, I do not need a thing, but you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me. Jesus is saying, I know your deeds. He called this church out on the carpet and said, look, I know what you've been up to. And you're neither cold nor you're hot. I wish you were either one. And here's the thing, how we live actually reflects the true reality of what we believe. Do you understand that? I'm going to repeat that for you. Jot it down. How you live, how I live, how we live, reflects the true reality of what we believe. So Jesus is saying basically to these people, hey, I know what you're doing. I'm not talking about, don't tell me about what you believe. I don't really care. I don't want to hear about what it is you believe. I see what you live. I see what you believe by how you live. He called them out on the carpet. He knew exactly how they were living. So he didn't need to hear all about, well, here's what I believe. Jesus didn't care about that. Coffee drinkers in the house? Anybody? Coffee? Yeah, hold them hand. Yeah, be embarrassed. I don't know why you drink this stuff, but. Hot coffee drinkers? Like it hot? Like it cold? Some people like it cold. You like it room temperature? Not so much. There's a few weird ones. Some of you that have real problems. I don't drink coffee, but I am a bit of a milk snob. I cannot drink anything but farm fresh milk. I can't do it. So if I ever moved somewhere where there was farm, I'd be in trouble. I don't know what I'd do. I gotta have that glass jar because we set our refrigerator like just before it turns to ice, and you pull that and it frosts, and that little bottle, that glass bottle you get from Farm Fresh, and we have like 50 of them in the closet. They're $1 a piece now, savings. But I love that. And I even like it hot. Like we'll make hot chocolate in the winter with it, and just straight milk and hot chocolate. Oh man, nothing better, right? But what I really don't like is when Caden leaves it on the counter overnight, and then you pour that, and it's just kind of warm, and just don't like it. That's what Jesus is kind of talking about here. It's actually a little bit deeper than that. He calls them lukewarm, but you have to understand, Laodicea was this awesome city, and one of the things they did, they built these tunnel systems to pull water into the city, and if you were really, really affluent, if you were among the best and had money and you wanted the best water, you got to drink first because it was cold. But if you weren't, you had to drink last, and it was just kind of room temperature. It's just kind of warm. So really, Jesus was saying, hey, you're missing out. What he was saying to these people was, you're missing out on the best because you're living a lukewarm life. And so that word that he uses, he said in verse 16, so because you are lukewarm, neither hot or cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. The word spit in that passage appears one time in the Bible, right here. And it means, it's a Greek word that actually means spew, spit, or vomit. Everybody say vomit. That's right. In other words, Jesus is what he is saying here is like, I know who I am and I know what I've done for you and I know what I'm about to do for you, and I'm not simply satisfied with a little head nod or a church attendance on Easter and Christmas or once a week or whatever, or fit me in, Jesus, when you want. I'm not satisfied with that. What he's saying is Jesus says, when you are apathetic and you are complacent and you are comfortable in your pursuit, I can't stomach it. It makes me sick. I reject it. I'm repulsed by it. From the deepest part of me, I want to spit you out of my mouth. You make me want to vomit. That's what he's saying to these people because of our complacency. Because we're neither hot nor we're cold. We're just room temperature. Jesus is saying, I'd rather you be over here or over here and not on the fence. I'm repulsed by it. I had to ask myself this question this week. Is Jesus repulsed by my walk? Is he repulsed? Do I make him want to vomit because I'm so complacent and so lukewarm? Am I a full-time pastor and a part-time follower of Jesus? What are you? You know what an oxymoron is? Anybody? Oxymoron? You ever heard of that, right? It's when you take two really stupid words and you put them together and they don't make sense. You know, like in our English language, we have oxymorons. They're like jumbo shrimp. Why? Why do we do that? Act naturally. Okay, it's weird. Or Great Depression. What was so great about it? I don't remember being great. Only choice. It's my only choice. It doesn't. Microsoft works. Sorry for some of you. I'm an Apple fan. Steve Jobs paid me to say that. Lukewarm Christians? Does that make sense? Lukewarm Christians? Really? We shouldn't be lukewarm Christians. Should be such a thing. So, this morning I want to just walk through 10 attributes. I'm just going to walk through some attributes this morning. 10 attributes of lukewarm Christians. Top 10 list this Sunday at church. Okay? 10 attributes, and as I read through these and as I go through these this morning, I want you to do two things. Chances are that when I talk about some of these, some of you will instantly go, you know what? Yeah, I know somebody like that. There's probably people in your life that you know are going to fit some of these attributes that I'm going to read. The other thing is, if you're really, truly honest, and if you came to church to actually get better or grow in your relationship with Christ, you'll do a self-check this morning of your own walk and your own relationship with Christ. And if you're truly honest, as we read through some of these, you're probably going to go, that's probably me. I probably fit that description. Let's jump into it. First one. You ready? Lukewarm Christians. Lukewarm Christians crave the acceptance from people more than acceptance from God. Luke chapter 6 tells us that woe to you when all men speak well of you. And Timothy tells us that in the last days people will be lovers of themselves. Lukewarm people crave acceptance from people more than they crave acceptance from God. We live in a very, very self-centered generation. Do you like my car? Do you like my shoes? Do you like my hair? Please approve me. Like my picture. Like my Instagram photo. Ooh, I got 150 likes. Who cares? Posting selfies. Posting stuff. Oh, look at this. We are craving. We live in a generation that is actually craving acceptance. We crave acceptance from each other. We care more about what somebody sitting in the row behind us thinks of us than what we care about Jesus thinks of us this morning. That's why we're not free in our worship. Probably. We're too scared to lift our hands, or if we feel God moving us, we're too scared to come down and pray, or we're too scared because we crave the acceptance of people more than we crave the acceptance of Jesus Christ, who died to save us from our sins. Jesus says, beware when men speak well of you. And the thing is that some of us thrive on this without really even knowing it. We are living for the approval of people versus God. So my question is, who are you living? Who do you want to impress this morning? Number 2, lukewarm people rarely, pay attention to this one, rarely share their faith. Lukewarm people rarely share their faith with anyone. When is the last time that you actually told your salvation story to anybody? When is the last time you invited somebody to church? When is the last time you even spoke the name of Jesus outside of church? They rarely share their faith. Why? Because we don't want to be weird. We don't want to be that Jesus freak. We don't want to be rejected. Why? Because we care more about what men think of us than what Jesus thinks of us. We don't want to offend anybody. We live in a culture where everybody's offended by everything. And I tend to believe that it may be a heart thing in the fact that we really don't, pay attention to this, I think some of us have to question ourselves, and you need to ask yourself, do we really believe that the power of the gospel and the good news of Jesus has any power to save someone's life? Do you really believe that? At the core of what you say you believe. You say, well, I believe in God. Do you believe that the story of Jesus and the gospel and the good news have any power whatsoever to save someone's life and help them? If we don't really truly, I felt like if we really truly believe that, we would tell people about it. I mean, we use, anybody have a product they love? Love Farm Fresh milk. I tell people about it. Hey, have you tried Farm Fresh milk? I love it. You have a product that you use that works for you. You're like, oh, dude, you got to try this. We say that to people all the time. We have the greatest product on earth, people, and we're carrying it around like some big, giant secret. We should be telling everybody. Lukewarm Christians rarely share their faith. Jesus said, if you confess before me, I will confess for you. I will confess you before my Father. Number 3, lukewarm Christians do whatever it takes to alleviate their guilt. These people will rationalize their sin. They will, whatever they can do to rationalize their sin and make it okay, but deep down they know it's wrong, but they would never ever admit it because they want to fit in. And they rationalize it and they say, well, this is okay, it's not that big of a deal, that's old-fashioned, blah, blah, blah. And they do whatever they people want to rename and rebrand their sin, you know, like pornography. It's not pornography, it's adult entertainment. Sounds better, right? Sounds a little bit better. We rename it, dress it up. You can put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Adult language. You know, we don't call it profanity, we call it adult language. Hey, congratulations, kids. When you grow up, you can drop the F-bomb like me, but you're only 12, so you can't drop it right now. But when you grow up, it's adult language, and we can all use it. It's a justification. We can justify anything we want to in our lives. And people do that, and you're probably doing it right there. Some of you probably are doing that right now. Well, because God has pointed his finger on something in your life, and he poked his finger on it, and you're like, no, I'm okay with that. It's not a big deal. Everybody does it. This is the other thing that people do in this category. When you're a lukewarm Christian, I hear this phrase all the time, and it's this. Well, Trent, I think that God, blah, blah, blah. I think that God won't send me to hell. I think that God loves me. I think, and it's absolutely based on nothing spiritual. It's not based on anything scripturally. It's not scripturally based. It's just what you think because you're trying to justify something in your life that you want permission to do that you don't feel guilty about. They do whatever it takes to alleviate guilt in their life. It's my life. Who are you to judge? Stay out of my life. This isn't hurting anyone. They do whatever it takes to alleviate guilt. Number 4. Lukewarm people think more about life on earth than eternity in heaven. They are consumed by this life, the here and now. We're consumed about having a good time and partying with our friends and doing whatever the heck we want to do, whenever the heck we want to do it. We're consumed with this life. We give no thought to eternity. And we're so caught up in this life as lukewarm Christians. We're so caught up in this that we can't, and you hear it in our culture. Everything in our culture is, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I'll do whatever I have to do, and I'll eat right. I'll exercise. I just don't want to die. I just don't want to die. People get cancer. I'll go to chemotherapy. I'll do whatever I got to. I just don't want to die. People are hanging on to this life, this earthly life with two hands. You hear it all the time. I don't want to die. I want to be 150 years old and wear diapers. I just don't want to die. Paul says the opposite. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 21, he says, "For to me, living means living for Christ, and dying is what? Even better." Dying is even better. I'm not holding on to this life. You know what? I've got my eyes set on something beyond this life. I got a lot of friends and family, and my dad's there, and I can't wait to see him. I'm not living for this life, so I really don't care what you think about me. For me, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. We tend to hold on to the things of this earth and don't have our eyes fixed on eternity. Lukewarm people think more about life on earth than eternity in heaven. Lukewarm people gauge their morality. This is number 5, if you're keeping count. Lukewarm people gauge their morality by comparing to others. We have this gauge, somehow, lukewarm people have this gauge of their life and how well they're doing based on what they see in other people's life. Well, at least I ain't doing that. Well, congratulations. You know, I think at some point in time, we believe, and it's probably somebody has heard, well, I think God, he doesn't grade on a curve. It's not like some big curve, and it's like, well, like my dad spoiled it for us all. Way to go, Dad. Thanks for messing us up. It doesn't work that way. He doesn't grade on a curve. It doesn't matter what the next guy's doing. It's about your individual relationship with Christ, and you better get it right. You got one chance to do it. Lukewarm people gauge their morality by comparing to others. We somehow have come to that conclusion that God grades on a curve, and he doesn't. Lukewarm people, this is number 6, this is interesting. Lukewarm people, they want to be saved from the penalty of sin without changing anything in their life. Isn't that interesting? Well, I don't want to go to hell, but I don't want to stop doing this either. I really don't want to change anything. I want to do God the way I want to do God. We ask ourselves, like, how far can I go? God draws a line, and we step right up to it just to see how close we can get. Lukewarm people want to be saved from the penalty of sin without changing their lives. What can I get away with and still make it, God? Number 7, lukewarm people. I love this one too. Lukewarm people only turn to God when they're in a bind, when they're in a pinch. I call this spare tire Jesus. Oh, spare tire Jesus. Let's get spare tire Jesus out of the trunk. Something bad's happened in my life. I got a bad diagnosis. Somebody's had a tragedy. There's been some tragedy. Our culture's geared that way. all of a sudden, when something bad, people who haven't give God a second of their time or their life or their finances or haven't done anything, all of a sudden want everybody, oh, let's pray. Let's seek God in our time of crisis. Spare a tire, Jesus. When we get past the crisis and we get beyond the crisis, oh, well, let's go, Jesus. We're going to put you over here back in the trunk. We'll break you out when we need you the next time. See, when our weather's good and no one's fighting and money's in the bank and there's food in the pantry and our kids are healthy, we're not focused on a relationship. We don't need him. We're self-sustaining. Lukewarm people only turn to God when they're in a bind. Number 8, lukewarm people. This is a tricky one. They give whenever it doesn't impinge on their standard of living. They ask questions like, how much do I have to give? Instead of asking questions, how much can I give? I'll give as long as it doesn't impinge on my standard of living. And this is always a tough one for pastors. Don't like to talk about money because it's like stereotypical of churches. They're like, because somebody would probably think, okay, well, here it goes. Talking about money. I'm not talking about money because we need your money. If you think your money, my Father has cattle on 1,000 hills. You're missing out on a blessing if you're not giving faithfully. You're missing out on what God has promised he would do for you. You're missing out on a blessing. And you give out of a different place when you're a passionate follower of Jesus Christ. Because what lukewarm Christians give out of like, well, this stuff is mine. I work for it. I go to work every day. I work 40 hours a week. This is all mine. I've worked hard for what I have. This is my money. This is my bank account. This is my house. This is my cars, my boats, all my stuff. This is mine. And a compassionate follower of Jesus Christ realizes that none of it is ours. That's the difference. So you're giving away something that doesn't belong to you anyway. A passionate follower of Jesus Christ says, this is God's. It's all God's. He could take it from me in an instant. I don't care what he does with it. They give. Lukewarm people give whenever it doesn't impinge on their standard of living. Number 9. This one's interesting too. Lukewarm people are not much different than the rest of the world. There's nothing that sets them apart. They look the same, they smell the same, they walk the same, they talk the same. Let's be honest, lukewarm Christians don't stand out too much. They're not different from other people. They listen to the same music, they drink the same drinks, they use the same filthy language, they watch the same filthy shows and laugh about them in movies. They have the same morals, really, as everybody else. Why? Because it's comfortable and it's easy. And it's more difficult to say, hey, you know what, guys? Let's not watch this and turn the TV off. Or it's more difficult to say some friends and the people that you run around with that say, yeah, that's not for me. It's just comfortable. Lukewarm is like bathwater. It's just comfortable. Not too hot, not too cold. It's like baby bear soup. The compromise of our morals and convictions to be accepted is a recipe for a lukewarm experience. Number 10, I'm going to ask the band to come. Number 10 is lukewarm people want the benefits of Christ. They want the benefits of what Christ did for us, meaning salvation and forgiveness, without conforming to who he is. I could stand up and preach a message on grace and forgiveness, and you bring all your baggage and bring all of your junk in here and lay it down, and we're all the same, and we're all sinners saved by grace, and that is true. I am nothing without Christ. Because I'm a pastor doesn't mean I don't struggle with things, that I don't have temptations, that that I'm not saved from that Jesus Christ hasn't saved me from that. But it requires us conforming to who he is. It requires a relationship with him if we're going to be different. So Christian atheists, lukewarm. You know, it's not that way everywhere. There's churches all over our world that are on fire, and people are going to great length to spread the gospel, losing their lives to do so. It's easy to be lukewarm, and I just wonder what, it's easy. We have so much here even. We've got theaters and stadiums and shopping centers and all the money and boats and cars and fun. It's easy to be lukewarm, church. I couldn't help but read through this and wonder what kind of letter Jesus would write to Salem Grace. I'm not saying it would be bad necessarily. It may not be. I think we do a lot of great things. I'm not here just to beat everybody up, but I just wonder what he would call. What if he wrote a letter to you? What if he wrote a letter to you individually? What would it say? Hey, you're doing this and this pretty good? Or would it just be, hey, I'm not even going to throw you a bone. You're lukewarm, and you make me sick and make me want to vomit. I don't know. He called us in Revelation 3:17. He said, you say I'm rich, I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing, but you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. I wonder if that describes some of us this morning. I ask you to stand. So what if it is? Look at Trent and say, okay, so what if that is me? Maybe you're looking at me going, okay, maybe that is me this morning, Trent. What if that's our church? What do we got to do? How do we fix it? How do I fix it? How do I stop being lukewarm and being so complacent? And I think it's really pretty simple. Jesus gives us the answer, and right at the end of his letter to the church at Laodicea in Revelations 3:20. And I'll just tell you a story real quick. My dad, I was growing up, we had this, when I was in high school, we had this like 72 lime green Datsun pickup. It was a piece of junk. It was the ugliest thing. But he drove that truck everywhere. And on the dashboard of that truck, you remember those little things that had and you turn them and press a number? It was like a label maker, Some of you that don't understand, just play along, act like you do. It's like a label maker, but some of us, you turn the dial. You remember that old thing, and you go, and it'd make a little letter, and then you'd have to spell out a whole. My dad did that, and then it'd come out like a little tape strip, and you could tape them places. And my dad taped this whole scripture on the dashboard of his truck. And every morning when I'd get to school, I'd read Revelations 3:20, and it said this: here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me. The other thing my dad would do is he always had a picture on him. If you're around my dad for even a second, he had about a stack of these things in his wallet. And he'd whip them out. I don't know if you've ever seen this picture or know the significance of this picture, but it's Jesus knocking on the door. But you'll notice that the door doesn't have a handle on the outside. It can't be opened from the outside in. Jesus isn't going to force his way into your life. The top part of the arch in the doorway forms the shape of your heart. And the thorns and stuff that you see creeping up and around the door are sin trying to creep its way into our lives. And Jesus is ever presently knocking at your door of your heart. Really, see, the simple answer is this: you let Jesus into your heart, you overcome your pride, you make yourself a little vulnerable, and all of a sudden, he will change you from the inside out. You'll experience him like you've never experienced him before. Because when you know him, You crave acceptance from him and not the world. You share him whenever and wherever possible. You long to be with him eternally in heaven. This world is not your home. You give radically and generously and fanatically. You seek God faithfully. You grieve over sinless or sinful people that don't know him. You grieve over them. And you become different and set apart because he's changed you from the inside out. Let me pray with you this morning. Heavenly Father, I just pray, God, that your Holy Spirit would move in and out of these rows of chairs in this gym that we call church, Lord. That you would seek our hearts. Help us to examine ourselves, Lord, and if there's somebody here that feels like they need to step out and pray, just do it. Don't think about what other people think about you. Lord, I just ask that there's somebody here that maybe you spoke to this morning, Lord, that you could just say, that they would just say this prayer. God, come into my life. Forgive me for being lukewarm. Forgive me for being repulsive in my complacency. Lord, I just ask that you would come into my life and create a fire that burns from the inside out my life, that people around me will see that I'm different and ask what's going on, and that I will truly and willingly share the good news of Jesus Christ with those people that don't know you. Lord, I pray for those people that are out in Salem today doing who knows what. Lord, that you would begin to convict this community, that you would begin to help us do our part in sharing the good news. Lord, I just pray if there's somebody like that that's prayed a prayer and ask you that they would commit that right here and now. Thank you for this church. Thank you for the faithfulness. Help us, Lord, to always keep our guard up and never, ever let ourselves slip into a lukewarm experience. Father, thank you so much for your grace and your love and your forgiveness and your patience with us, Jesus. Help us not to be proud. Help us to be humble and admit where we have failed. Go with us and take us from this place this morning, I pray, God, and help us to be effective salt and light into a lost world.